Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Drinks with Johnny, where today I'm super excited. I am joined by Phil Labonte of All That Remains. So much other things that he's doing these days, too. Phil, how the hell are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's a wonderful day to be doing podcasts because it's like 1,000,000 degrees outside. So
Yeah, I thought you were just telling me for a little behind the scenes action off the top here. We started this. You lost a little bit of power. You're in the middle of a thunderstorm in West Virginia. Is that right?
yeah, I think there's some thunderstorms moving through. We had a power surge, and you know what happens to internet connections when that goes. Is modems have to reset, and they have to do their little song and dance, and then you have to go and connect everything again. So a little inclement weather has affected the technology, but we're good now. So
we're good to go. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the time, dude. I was saying before, you've been with All That Remains since '98. We've done some tours together. We did Ozfest in 2006 together.
Yep.
So over the last couple of days when we threw this together, I knew you were coming on the show. I was doing a little bit of research, of course, because all I knew you from was the singing and being
Sure.
of All That Remains. And I find out, over the years, you've become a little bit of a political activist, I guess, is whatever you want to call it.
Well, commentator is probably more accurate. There's a little bit of activism starting now, but it's not politically charged. It's not something that's going to upset, it wouldn't upset people, really. It's not like I'm like, this is a hot topic that really sets people on fire and blah, blah, blah. It's something that's very benign and pretty easy for everyone to kind of get behind. It's not really a partisan issue, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know through that you've recently been on, occasionally you're on the Timcast podcast as well, doing podcasting. How you liking that? I did like that voice, though. Do you ever use that voice when you're talking politics with Tim?
Sometimes when I think someone has said something silly, I'll mock them and make fun of them. I don't really do impressions, though. There's a couple people that really do good impressions. Donald Trump is pretty easy to do impressions of for some people, right. And Joe Biden's a little bit of the same kind of way. Frequently, presidents have a personality that makes them fairly easy to emulate. Even thinking back to Barack Obama, his cadence and the way that he spoke, it was very easy for people that could do impressions to kind of, slide into that, and this, and the pauses, and the way that he talks, and that kind of stuff.
And the ahs. I always notice the ahs, in between every other word, there's a and.
But even thinking way back into when I was a kid in the 90s, Dana Carvey used to do Bush Senior, and it was hilarious, and it was so good. But it really is. It's for some reason when maybe it's just presidents. Maybe that's part of why they get elected, is because they are memorable and have this charisma. But presidents are so frequently easy for people to go ahead and do an impression of, and their mannerisms and stuff are fairly easy for people to be like, yeah, I can do that, and it makes for good fun, I think so.
Yeah. And everybody knows who they are. So anything that you could pick up on, can become something that is pretty viral and recognizable for everyone. I think you're right on that. I think that's part of why they run in the first place, or why they even become presidents in the first place, is, they have certain mannerisms that everyone gravitates towards, that a lot of our minds, can relate to in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing that Timcast? I know you're not like you're doing it a couple times a week, but you're not on every episode. What's that like?
So I do, usually I'll do 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the week and what's going on, depending on who's going to be there and stuff. If there are particular people that I'm interested in talking to, I'll just be like, I want to do this one. If not, they'll be like, hey, we need you this day and this day, come on in. And it's really low key. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, or year and a half, going on 2 years. I started February of last year. And it's been great. I met Marianne Williamson. I've met RFK, got to ask him some questions. I've met Don Jr. I've met Dennis Kucinich. I've met Thomas Massey. So I've met multiple people that are in the House. I've met a couple senators. Senators are harder to tie down. The upper chamber definitely has a whole lot of this going on. They're snobby.
They're a little snobby, okay.
Yeah, whereas the House is, the House being 435 members and the People's House, they're far less snooty. The senators want you to take them seriously, and they kind of demand it. So getting time with them is significantly harder than getting time with people in the House of Representatives. But it's been great. It's been fun. I met a lot of people that are extremely interesting, and it's also afforded me the opportunity to kind of meet some actual DC insiders and discuss, how the sausage is made. It's real easy for people to be like, well, I want this to happen and the government should make it happen. And it's like, I know what you're thinking and I know what you're feeling, and nobody wants to hear this, but it's really, really, really hard to do that. You just getting things done in DC is really difficult, because just as much as someone's like, oh, we want to do this and we've got a bunch of people that'll put the effort in, there's probably someone on the other side of the aisle that's like, I ain't gonna let them do that ever, and I'll drive the bus off the road if they get close. So it is difficult to do stuff, and it is extremely educational to sit down and talk with people that have been there for a while and that know how the quote unquote the sausage is made. So it's great fun.
Dude, that's actually the interesting part to me. I'm not a super political guy. I mean, of course I have my own beliefs and like everybody else walking the world, but I also, between the time that I spend on other things, I'm not an expert on it. So a lot of times, like, I don't weigh in because I truly want to, if I'm going to weigh in on something, I want to know all sides of it, all sides of the topic at hand. I don't want to just take it from one side and spit some kind of, nonsensical bullshit about it, without, taking the step that is an old adage of putting my foot in somebody else's shoes. I don't think there's enough of that going on. And maybe that goes back to what you were just saying, whereas there's someone on the other side, I'm never going to do that, because that's the thing where I will talk a little bit about what you would call politics, but it's more so just my complaints with it. Is the fact that, like, it does seem like everybody just is really hard pressed to consider the other perspective. And it's just, it's pretty sad, really, because it's like, how are you supposed to find a common ground? Like, how are you supposed to find compromise if you're unwilling at all to see things from the other side? Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed nowadays that's one of the most difficult challenges is it seems like, and I don't want to point fingers, so I'm not going to say, who's doing what, but it is more common to find people that don't understand the opposing view and have decided that taking the most uncharitable characterization or caricature might even be a more accurate word, the most uncharitable caricature of what the opposing view is, and run with that. They'll say, oh, well, so when it comes to like abortion, right? One side will be like, well, all they want to do is just tell women how they have to live. And then the other side will be like, all they want to do is just kill babies because they're evil. And it's like, that's not either of the arguments. No, neither side makes that argument. And so having the ability to sit down and steel man is a phrase that gets used a lot, which means to understand and be able to articulate the best position for your opposition's argument, knowing the argument that your opponents are making and knowing their position on a political issue well enough so that way you can give the most charitable, the most positive explanation of their perspective. It does enormous things for getting people to work together. If you can tell someone, this is what I think your issue is, this is what I think your position on the issue is, and this is why I think you think that. And if they can say, yes, that's it, that's exactly it, and maybe they'll say, and furthermore, and then you can accept that and take their addition to it. But if you can tell someone their opinion, or if you can articulate someone else's opinion in a way that they say, exactly, then you can say, okay, well, here's what I think, and this is why I think that. This is why I think differently. And if you can do that, then you can get tons of work done. Then you can get tons of just good-natured progress through an issue. And that's not meaning that you're going to change the way either people think. It's just, it makes people look at each other like a human being, as opposed to some imagined evil that you see it just far too much of. Being able to understand your political opponent's position and articulate it to them will do wonders for your ability to talk to people and communicate.
Yeah, I think that, even beyond politics, I think that goes in normal conversation too, right? Sorry, go ahead. You were talking.
No, well, whether it's politics or whether it's any kind of disagreement, if you can tell someone, I understand you, and I understand where you're coming from so well that I can explain your position, and when they hear it and say, that's it, it's very, very, very good for personal relationships.
I agree. Yeah, and to that point, it's definitely like I was saying, it was definitely like in normal conversations when you're just having a disagreement of any kind, whether it be in a relationship with your wife or your friends or your bandmates, you ran the gamut of all those things, right? And it just shows that you're paying attention and actually putting yourself in someone else's perspective and showing that you have an open mind to it. And this is why you came to that position. And then you could come back and say, hey, so now that I've explained my position, what do you think? And then you can, it becomes too attacking back and forth. You're just going to, one way or another, however you look at it, I didn't see all of the presidential debates because I was in Europe. But the little bit that I saw afterward was just disappointing for everybody involved. It was just, to me, I was just watching. I was like, this is just, America, we had a good run, It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. The fact that they're arguing about fucking golf at a presidential debate was just embarrassing for everybody involved. And I think that, just, there's no... It's just vicious attack after vicious attack. There's no one just like, can we actually talk about what the fuck we're supposed to be talking about here and coming to compromises of any kind? And it just doesn't look like that is in the foreseeable future at this point.
Yeah, it's difficult. And I'm not trying to, I don't want to come across like I'm saying that I'm not a partisan. I have very strong opinions, and I have a belief system, and it's based in, I like to read a lot of philosophy and stuff like that, and so like it's based in a lot of political theory and stuff. So it's not that I am wishy-washy on my opinions, but I know that if you want to actually communicate with people, you have to listen to them and you have to understand them, and that's something that I try to do a lot. I try to make sure that if I'm going to argue against a position, I need to be able to understand what the position is, and I need to understand what the people that I will be arguing against think and feel and why it matters to them, and that's a big part of it too, why it matters to them. Understanding people. Like people want to feel like you care. People want, and it's best to actually care.
Yeah, but, people, I was gonna say, Phil.
But people want to be understood. They want they want to feel like you like they matter. And if you can portray that was one of the things that Bill Clinton was phenomenal about. People would say all the time, I sat down with President Clinton and he just made me feel blah, blah, blah. And I've met a couple people like that. What's funny, it's going to surprise people or whatever. I met Glenn Beck for like 30 seconds one time, like really, really fast. And I was like, I totally get why he's where he is. Like just shaking his hand and the way that he was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I was like, I get it. There's this charisma and this just taking just a few seconds. And I was like, I get that. I get why he's so popular and stuff. Not that I agree with Glenn Beck on a lot of things, but I understand that charisma, and I understand that personable. He's very personable and makes you feel like when he's talking to you, you're the only person in the room. And that was the same thing that I've heard people talk about Bill Clinton as well. Like when Bill Clinton was talking to you, he made people feel like they care, like he cared. And that is what people want. And if you can do that, you get people to do almost anything for you.
Yeah. That's easy to say for like politics and stuff too, but it goes for everything. I mean, like we were talking at the top here, we're talking about podcasting, and I mean that convey it. It seems easy enough to just sit here and talk to a friend or something like that, or a peer of some kind. But when you start to break it down and get, into real talking and real conversations, it's not for everybody. Because to your point, a lot of times you're just going to, I might ask you something if I was, not really interested. I'd ask you and just stare at you and then go on about whatever else I had on my agenda to cover and stuff like that. Which is more often than not what I'm seeing when I turn on the news. I mean, I got into politics for a hot second for, a few years ago. And man, every time I turned on the news on any network, all of them, I eventually just was like, this is just all the same shit, all doom and gloom. There's nothing. It's just depressing the shit out of me at this point. So I just kind of stepped away. And then, I know enough to, like the normal passerby or someone mentioned something, I ask them about it. And then I usually either formulate my own thoughts on it, or if it's something I really care about, I might actually do some research on it. But more often than not these days, I got to be honest, it's all so bad to me that I just want nothing to do with it one way or the other.
It can be ugly. I definitely agree with that. It can definitely be ugly. So.
Yeah. Well, I digress. We just covered the politics that you've been doing for the last couple of years there, Phil. But I do know that you were mentioned that with the Timcast, there's also another one that covers a little bit more pop culture. Can you talk to me about that one? Yeah.
So there's it's called Pop Culture Crisis. It's on every day at 3 to 5 East Coast time. And this is, it's like TMZ. We talk about who's doing Ozempic, who's had, face work, who's being silly, who's said stuff that got them in trouble, who's been canceled, whether or not the new Disney movie is doing well, that kind of stuff. So it's very lighthearted, and it's mostly just making fun of the ridiculousness that is the world of Hollywood. I mean, you guys are from California, so you guys, I don't know if you live there now, but you've seen what LA is like more than most, and it is full of ridiculousness. And so we get together and we kind of, joke about that and make fun of it,
Who's been some of the recent people that you've been talking about?
Who have they been? Like I said, the Ozempic stuff. The girl from the blonde girl from The Boys. I end up being like the dad that's like, who? What?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, Phil. I was like, I see the ads for The Boys. I understand what the show is. It's on Prime. I've never watched an episode. I don't know any of the actors. I apologize to big fans of The Boys. I haven't started it yet. So, So, I mean, is she like one of the main actresses?
I don't know. She's. I think her nickname's Starlight on it or whatever. And the first couple seasons she had a one look, and then the last season she's got a significantly different look. According to some people, they're like, oh, she looks really, really different. And then there's the big conversation about, whether she's doing or whether she's taking Ozempic, and that's a big topic now. The other people on the podcast, Brett is, I think he's in his early 30s, and Mary, she's like 21. So, there's like almost a 30-year gap between me and Mary. So it's really funny when we're like talking about stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about, kids? And I do my best to not sound like I'm a million years old. And I think I do okay, considering being in the music industry and stuff like that. I do think that tends to help keep you young. I don't have any kids, which is another thing that I think helps keep people young. Once you have kids, it kind of freezes you in time for a minute or a bit. And because I see it with our guitar player, Mike. He just had a kid a couple years back, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so much older now that I have a child than I was the day before I had a child. He's like, I aged like 30 years as soon as Axel was born. I'm like, I know, I can tell.
Oh, his son's name's Axel too. Great name there.
Yeah, and his wife came up with it too. Like, and
nice.
They don't spell it like Axl Rose. And Mike's the biggest the biggest Guns N' Roses fan that you're gonna find. He loves Guns N' Roses, and she's like, let's name him Axel. And so Mike was like, seriously? Hell yeah, So
yeah. No, it is true though. I mean, I've got one son who's 7 years old, and as soon as he came out, like I swear, I aged so fast. I mean, it kind of ties into the politics. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, again, in my perfect world, just like there's an age minimum, there should be an age maximum for the presidency of this state as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, I mean, at some point you realize, especially as a parent too, any of the parents out there can understand, you're looking down at this child that's the next generation. The world is going to be completely different for my son when he's 20 versus when I was 20. So how can I possibly understand and do that? You could try your best, of course, and that's what any politician should be doing, right? That's what they're supposed to be doing, is representing the people of America. But if you're that far removed because, you're 2 or sometimes 3 generations older than the adult population that's voting, that becomes a bit of a fucking problem, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the 2 candidates now, they're both one is 80, the other one's pushing 80. And I wouldn't have a problem with some kind of, age limit. It's like, look, if you 70 years old is where you can't run anymore.
That's what I was saying. That's the exact number that I came up with. I said, I know it starts at 40, give a 30-year window. And that way, if there is a 70-year-old that wins and gets gets reelected, 78, you're done, right?
Yeah, the most you could be possibly,
And, and it would have to be an exceptional 70-year-old, in my opinion, to pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, but again,
to do it right, obviously.
Yeah, if there was legislation with that, I wouldn't have a problem. And if that wouldn't fly, I wouldn't have a problem with cognitive tests. Look, you as a president, you have to have doesn't matter how old either. I think if you're 45, you should still have to get a cognitive, because you can have any number of bad things can happen to you. You could get hit in the head when you're a kid and end up having something that pops up later in life or whatever. So, and considering I am very cognizant of the fact that we have a lot of nuclear weapons, and so do a few other countries, and there should not be the president of the United States does have the authority to order a first strike if he wanted to, and the military must listen. So because of that, it is, in my opinion, of the utmost importance that the president of the United States not be crazy. Can't be crazy. So
it seems like such a simple thing, Phil. Seems like such a simple thing.
He's got thousands of nuclear weapons at his disposal. We have to make sure that he's not a nutbag.
Yeah.
Period. And that shouldn't be a big ask, right?
No. Everyone who wants to be president should sign up for that. Be like, no problem. I mean, that's the other thing, too. When I think about the presidency, I know we will get into some other things that aren't political here in a minute, like the new All the Remains music and stuff, and the tours you got coming up. But since we're on the subject, I will continue to talk about
crypto, too. I know some of you guys like that.
Oh, I love crypto. Love me some crypto. But yeah, it's just so interesting, because it seems like all these things that you and I might completely see eye to eye on, like there should be requirements, there should be but there's also all the other things. It's like, if you're running for president, you should already know that you should be a complete wide open book of every fucking thing, or any political party or position at any point. There's a good reason why I will never run. There's several good reasons why I would never run. But part of it is because, but part of it would be, I don't want that book opened. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Since I started, with the Timcast stuff with the guys on IRL, people will randomly tweet at me, because I'm very, very active on X too. I'm one of the guys that will talk to people, and I'll get into arguments and stuff. I have no problem with it, because that's what I've been doing since even before there was Twitter. I used to get on Lambgoat, the message board back in the day, and I don't even know what Lambgoat is, dude. Lambgoat's an old metal and hardcore message board, and it's still around. But I used to get on their message board, and I would talk with people and stuff. And it's been something that I've done. The internet. I've been a very, very active person on the internet for as long as there has been the internet, and And so, I'll get on there and I'll talk about, whatever the topic of the day is. And I forgot where I was going with this now. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. You were talking about how you'll be on Twitter, and I don't want to call it beefing, but commenting back at people who comment at you.
Yeah, and so I mean that's part of the thing. And people will be like, oh, you should run for office or whatever. And I'm like, hell no. I'm like, man, llisten.
There's got to be a better candidate than you and I, Phil.
I'm like, I don't want that. You don't want that. I am never. And I'm like, no. People be like, well, it's okay because blah blah blah. I'm like, no, it's not okay. I ain't doing that at all. No. I don't want people looking into my past. It's like with the IRL stuff. There's a lot of people that they end up having a lot of religious people and stuff. There's a couple people that actually work there that are very religious and stuff. And I'm very much like, look, they'll get into like some of the more purity kind of stuff. And I'm like, look, man, I am far closer to a degenerate than I am to a good Catholic boy or anything. All right. Yeah. I've been in a metal band for 25 years, been on tour for 20 of those or so. I am not the guy to sit there and talk about whether or not people should be, doing anything. You go live your life. If you're not hurting anybody, more power to you. But I ain't the guy that's going to condemn you for doing any of that stuff, because I don't want people looking into my history and being like, oh, you think you're better than people? No, I ain't better than nobody. I'm worse than most.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. But furthermore, though, on that, don't you agree, though, it should be like, that should be the standard, though? Like it should be the the few of us among us on this planet that, are willing to put that out there. I mean, I may be willing to put everything that, my past digressions on Front Street at some point in my life, but I should never be judging anyone else. I don't think anyone should be judging anyone to begin with, to be honest. I mean, back to your point, like you said, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, I don't see a lot of problems with most things in life. Most things in life, as long as you're not hurting someone else, I don't see a problem with it. Yeah. And I also don't think, I mean, judgment shouldn't be a part of politics anyway. You're supposed to be running things so that everyone gets the best they possibly can, which is not perfect. I'm not saying that everything should be perfect, because it's not. But you're supposed to be trying. The point is, you're trying to make it good for everybody, and that's easier said than done, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. So,
but you did mention being in a metal band for 25 years and touring for 20 years of that, and recently you guys have just started back up again after a bit of a hiatus. Pretty cool, pretty exciting as a fan as well. Got 2 singles out right now. Divine was the first one, and Let You Go. Both, I watched both videos, listened to both songs. They sound amazing. A lot of throwback stuff to your metalcore roots, what you guys were a big part of. We mentioned, I think now I don't remember if it was part of the technical difficulty recording or this one, but we mentioned we were on Headbangers Ball together at the same time, and coming up together in that 2005 to 2010 metalcore quote unquote era, or whatever the fans want to deem it as. So you still have a lot of that steeped in there, but I also noticed there was, I don't know if it was by design or whatever, but maybe you could speak to the new direction of All That Remains. But you guys have always had technical stuff, but I feel like you went a little bit further on songs like Divine too, where it's just there's a lot of chops going on. There's a lot. I mean, the double kick part that sounds like a fucking helicopter that just keeps it flourishes for about 30 seconds, then goes to a different beat, and then comes back up for 30 seconds. Although all the while you got everyone shredding. Is there more of a what's the is this more of a progressive metal? That's the word I was looking for. More of a progressive avenue you guys are taking now.
I think that's probably accurate. So we kind of had a bit of a hiatus, unintentional, in 2018. Our guitar player Ollie Herbert passed away.
Right.
And so there was a minute where we weren't sure what was going to happen, because he's been with me. He was with me in 1999. I started the band in 98, and he was like the first lead guitar player that we had that was like to finish off the 5-piece. And so when he passed, there was a lot of not sure how things were going to be. Like, how do you do a band that has had this guy as one of the major writers, musical riff writers since at least since 2004, and so it took a little time to get used to that. We did have someone join the band real quickly after, Jason Richardson, who, if you are familiar with prog metal or whatever, you might know Jason's name. He's got a solo project. He used to be in Born of Osiris. He was in Chelsea Grin for a little while. He's done a lot of stuff with the guys in Polyphia. He's played a couple things on their records. He actually wrote the music for Ronald, the new Ronnie
Radke
Reverse song.
Yeah.
He wrote the music for that. So he's a very prolific writer and prolific artist. We had our drummer, Jason Costa. He'd been with us since 2007, and he decided that he'd kind of had enough of touring and stuff. It's tough to play metal, especially the stuff that we play. We've always had a lot of double bass and a lot of blast beats and a lot of fast stuff. Our drums were always rooted in the more extreme metal stuff. I'm a big fan of old school death metal and stuff like that. So blast beats and fast drums were a thing. And he's just like, hey, I don't want to keep the chops up like that anymore. I'm just over it. And we love him to death. So he's just the most wonderful human being. We still talk, a whole bunch. And so it was a amicable parting. But he decided that he was done. So we, put the feelers out, and we got Anthony Barone, who was in Beneath the Massacre, and the kid is, he's nasty as well. He went to Berkeley School of Music, and he's, just an absolute monster behind the kit. And then we also had a bass player change. Our old bass player, Matt Dice, who started, he was in the band in 2003, 2004, and 2005. And then he split to go play in CKY, and that didn't quite pan out the way that he thought it did, or thought it was going to. And then I think it was in 2019 or so, 2020, where we decided it was time to make a bass player change. And we were like, hey, Matt, you want to come back? And being a guy from Western Mass and from where we're from, and we've known him forever and ever, it's really, really comfortable. So it took a while for us to kind of get everything that we needed to get done. And, then COVID happened, and we wanted to get off of our label. And thankfully, Fearless Records, we were on Razor and Tie forever. And then Razor and Tie was bought by Concord Music Group, and then they dissolved the actual name Razor and Tie, and we got put over to Fearless. And that wasn't the right home for us. So we actually got them to let us out of our deal. There was an option that they actually said, no, you guys we're not going to pick up the option, you can go, which was, how rare that is in the music industry,
yeah. They definitely want you to deliver everything on that contract before you bail.
Yeah. And so they let us go. And so, we were free to go ahead and start recording music and writing music that was ours. So I released the record. The new stuff is all owned in-house. It's on All That Remains Records. And so it just took us a while to get everything together. But with the new people that we have, with Jason writing so much and with Anthony, we really we had license to really push musically what we could do. And Jason was a fan of All That Remains when he was young. Hopefully he's still a fan now, but he was when he was a kid, he loved the Fall of Ideals and the Overcome record, and those were really formative for him. So when him and Ollie, we did a tour with Born of Osiris in 2011, and him and Ollie hit it off, and they became friends. And whenever they could get together and talk or whatever, they were buddies. So when Ollie passed away, Jason was like, hey, would you like me to fill in? And we were like, well, we would actually like more than for you to fill in, because Ollie had said, he's like, look, if anything ever happened to me, I would want Jason to be the guy. He's like, he's the best guitar player.
He actually said that while he was still with us. Wow.
Yeah. They were buddies. Like I said, they were buddies, and Ollie was a big fan, and he was just like, look, and of course when when people say that kind of stuff, you don't think about it. It's not like,
of course not.
Oh, well, maybe something will happen to you. That's like, you don't think that kind of stuff.
No, you don't want to put that in the universe, right?
Yeah. But the fact that he said it, and when Jason was like, hey, if you want me to fill in, I was like, dude, like, if you want, like, the spot is yours, because you're the guy that Ollie wanted. Like Ollie said, if anything ever happened, you're the guy that he would want to replace him. So, like, if you want it, it's yours. And he was like, yeah. And so, we got our ducks in a row, and we started writing music for this release. I think we did Divine first. Jason gave that to us at the very end of 2021. 2022 is when I went and wrote in February 2022, like right around the same time that I started with Timcast, with the podcast. I went out to LA and me and Josh Wilbur took a couple of the songs that Jason had given us and started working on those. And as soon as we got Divine done lyrically and got the vocals tracked, everyone in the band was like, hey, I think we got something special here. Like, we feel really good about the way it sounds. And then we started to push a little bit more to get things, to start to get more stuff and get it out. And because of the fact that All That Remains fans are so wonderful and have supported us so much, like, we were able to do it in little bits and little bites. And I would go to LA and do 2 or 3 songs and come back home, and we weren't under the gun the way a lot of bands are. I mean, you guys know what it's like when you have to pump records out and stuff, and when you don't have to, it's like, it's like, thank goodness I'm not under the gun.
It's a young man's game, Phil. That's a young man's game. We don't have to do that shit no more.
Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So it was great to be able to do it at our own pace, and I think that we've definitely written the best record that we've done in a long time. And I can't wait to get the rest of it out. I mean, the 2 songs that we've got out already, they're both, like, the Divine hit 1 million spins on the YouTube video in the first month or something like that. And Let You Go is like 500,000. I think total we've got 7 or so million spins across multiple platforms now for them. And that's in just a couple months. And that's without a full record. That's with us being the label promoting it. And we'd been away for 6 years. To be able to go away, well, I mean, to go away for a long time and then come back and have your fans be like, yeah, we still love you. It's like, thank you so much. It's
the best.
It's the best. It's affirming, obviously, but it makes you so grateful, just so thankful, and I can't say enough good things about the All That Remains fans that have waited so patiently, and then as soon as it comes out, they're just like right there and just cheering us on, and it chokes me up a little bit thinking about it because of how lucky I am, and I just can't put into words enough how thankful I am for the fans of All That Remains. So,
dude. That's beautiful, and it's so true. I mean, as you said, I know what you're talking about there too, being away for a little while, and you question shit. It's very humbling, and then when you come back, that mentioned the gratefulness for the people that are there and the new people that are going to come in. Everything across the board, that we get to live these lives that we so desperately wanted when we were, grade school kids picking up instruments for the first time, and be able to wow, there's a camaraderie, there's a group that cares about what I do and still cares and allows for bands like yourselves, All That Remains, to go out and put out a record
and they come and yourself. They say thank you to me. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, why are you thanking me?
That's the one thing I always get a little awkward with, is like when someone, thank you for getting me through this, blah, blah. I'm like, that's amazing. Thank you for telling me that.
Yes.
Like when I'm sitting there writing it, that's unfortunately, I wish it was maybe more prevalent in my mind, but it's not. I'm focused on the music or what we're trying to accomplish with the song, with the lyrics, whatever the case may be. If later down the road it helps someone out, I mean, that's just bonus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just when they say that, to your point, so very well put there. When they thank you, that's fucking wild.
It's you know, I mean, we've got a couple songs that have really touched people that you know, kids or people come up to me and they're like, "What if I Was Nothing was the first dance at my wedding?" And I'm just like, you know, it's like you're telling me that that something that I wrote about something that happened in my life matters so much to you that you put it in the most important day, like let it be a part of the most important day of your life, and you're thanking me. Like this is it's totally wrong. I should be thanking you 100%. Like, you know, over and over, you know. So it's crazy,
dude.
But it is this amazing, wonderful life that these people have allowed me to live in, and I can't say enough how thankful I am, how grateful I am for all that remains. They're just the best.
Dude, that gratitude, I mean, and they know it too. That's the best part too, is like that's one of the good things. You know, there's good and bad of today's social media and being out there and everyone knows everything about everybody. There's bad to it too, but there is some good, and that is true. Like, you have ability to, on moments like this, and I'm sure on your own time, on your own podcast, on your own social media, be able to thank them and let them know what that truly means to you. And I think that is one of the great things that we get to do in our lives these days. Now, there was a few other things that you mentioned in there that I wanted to get back to, though.
Sure.
One of them, let's just go to Ollie passing in 2018. I heard about that. Very sorry for your guys' loss, of course. Someone who has been that close and everything. You mentioned just getting your ducks in a row after that. Did you, you know, again, something I can empathize with when we lost our drummer and stuff. There was a lot of that.
The Rev,
There was, after we lost the Rev, there was a lot of that. What now? And for us, and for I'll speak for myself personally, I wasn't sure I wanted to continue. Did you have, and if you got to that point, did it then take steps to get you back into a point where you wanted to continue to sing in All That Remains?
So I don't think that I ever cognizantly was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I think that I was very stubbornly like, okay, now we have to. And it reminded me of, so my father passed away 25 years ago already. He passed away when I was young. He had cancer. And when I found out and they told us, they were like, you know, it's terminal. He's not going to make it. And I was like, it didn't register the way that, for me, I still was like, well, he has to be strong enough to beat this, you know, and I guess it was denial. And I think that's kind of what it was like with All That Remains too. I was just like, this can't stop us, or this can't, like, Ollie wouldn't want it to. And I'm not sure that I put a lot of thought into how it would go or how it should go or whatever. And I think our other guitar player, Mike, he was a little more like, hey, you know, I'm not sure if this is what we need to do. And he never really pushed me on it. But looking back, I think that I was I was kind of in denial about whether or not All That Remains could continue. I was just like, we got to. And I think that fortunately we did get the right people in. But I'm not sure if we didn't, you know, if it wasn't for getting, you know, Jason in the band, I'm not sure that the band would have actually put anything out, because you know, it would have to be something that, it would have had to have been something that lived up to what Ollie would have done and had been good enough for his memory. And I think that I didn't think about how hard that actually would be until we got Jason and started working on stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really good stuff. And I was like, and I thought about it afterwards, and I'm like, you know, could we have done something this important with someone else? Could we have done something this important without this quality of musicianship? Could we have done something this important without Jason? And looking back, I'm not sure that it would have been the right thing now. But at the time, I think that I don't think that I realized it, you know. And thankfully, you know, that didn't happen, where we didn't have the quality stuff that we do. And we didn't, you know, thankfully we got the players that we got. But definitely, I think that when I was actually in it, there was a lot of denial going on that I hadn't really processed and hadn't worked with, and it took some time to get through that. And again, if Jason Richardson definitely saved All That Remains, and without him, I don't think that we would be putting music out. So it was definitely a process that I had to go through, and a lot of learning about myself and learning about my own feelings and stuff. So it was a big thing,
Yeah. No, I mean, big shoes to fill for sure. In that, and that's an understatement, of course, because of big shoes to fill as a outsider. But for you guys internally, I'm sure it's much further beyond that. You did mention that Jason was a fan. Everything. Ollie had a good relationship with him before, and even what I interjected on was like he actually said he wanted Jason. Like if in the event anything happened, it is interesting though, because I did read a little bit about Ollie's passing, and it seems like it's a little bit unclear at this point. Is that right? Am I reading too much into it?
I cannot discuss this.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough.
There are for legal reasons I cannot discuss this.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was just curious because on my research end, just for everyone listening at home, full disclosure rather. I just was unsure there. We can move on.
You can talk about what you read. I just can't discuss it.
Oh, okay. So what I read on one of those amazing sites was basically that originally it was thought that it was self-medication and that had gone too far, and maybe he had taken his own life. Whereas now I guess there's some sort of investigation based around if there was foul play involved. And I truly don't know wish to hope for in that. Either way, it's pretty awful. I don't know where I was going to go with that, but yes, sorry to hear that. And I'm sorry that still continues. Bottom of my heart, the fact that this is now 6 years later and you guys are still having to deal with something and not truly able to move on in a lot of ways, because I know how hard that can be. I mean, there's nothing that's going to make it easy. There's nothing other than time and dailies, everything. All the adages are true, I found, going through it.
Loss is a part of life. Yeah. And it's hard. It doesn't make it easier. But I do have, I think that I have a healthy relationship with understanding that loss is part of life. And part of what makes life wonderful is that life does end. That's why life is special. If life was eternal, then it would just be, and there wouldn't be the magic that it is. I don't think. I think that the fact that we are finite and that we will end gives more value to the time that we have. So that's the best outlook that I can have on it. But yeah, loss is part of life, and learning how to accept that is in my opinion extremely important when it comes to when it comes to growing as a person and dealing with the inevitable bad things that are going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, I found myself over last several years unable to not get away from that focus of that inevitability. And that's something I believe a lot of people struggle with, something I've gone through therapy with, tried a lot of different philosophies and things of that nature, and get to a better place where you do make peace with it. And I think that's the struggle, because we're all just thrown in here, man. We're all just thrown up and wake up into consciousness one day. You're told everything, you believe it early on, and then you start to question it when you get into your teenage years, and then you question it even more. Then you find out no one really knows a goddamn thing, and then you go on further, and then you just go like, oh fuck, I guess I'm just lucky to be here. So it kind of goes around in that whole thing. So again, sorry for your loss. Sorry that you're still having to deal with the ramifications of what might have happened. We'll close that book on it right now and get back to All That Remains. Got the 2 songs you mentioned that are released. You guys have All That Remains records now. I know what that must feel like as another artist. You tell me, how are you guys feeling about being able to put out as a free agent all the fucking music, whatever the fuck you want, and being able to, release it how you want to, not having a team of people with, I want to call them bad ideas, but ideas that don't necessarily vibe with yours and your art. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could talk to me about being on previous record labels and what are the good and bad things. I mean, I'm sure there's some pros and cons of running the label yourself now.
Yeah. So when we were on Razor and Tie, like back in the day, it was great. There wasn't a ton of heavy metal bands on Razor and Tie, so we were their rock band, their heavy band. They put a bunch of effort into us, and we had some great people that we worked with. And once Concord Music Group bought Razor and Tie, they stopped hiring new people when people would leave. So they would just be like, well, we'll get that guy to do it. This guy will do A&R. Has he done A&R before? Well, no, but he can do it now. And it's like, oh, okay. So that's how things are going. Because essentially what happened was Concord bought it, and they were just like, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and squeeze all the money out of this that we can. And we're not going to hire new talent and hire new people. And that is what happens in the music industry sometimes. And I understand, but
I'll tell you without saying too much, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, sure.
The labels that I've dealt with pretty much happened everywhere in the industry.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was very just to raise and tide there that it was just them. I think there was a sinking ship happening for a lot of the industry, I'll say.
Yeah.
And instead of forward thinking of how to create a rescue boat, they just got the buckets and tried to bail themselves out, and proved to be the wrong formula, I believe.
Yeah, I think also what a lot of people don't, a lot of people that are not in the music industry don't understand is when you have a catalog, whatever band it may be, they can project a value going forward 10, 20, 30 years based on what you've done in the past. So like when Michael Jackson's, catalog is purchased, they know about how much they're going to get because for the past 20 years, there's been a consistent revenue stream. So they can buy that and they can project forward. So what ends up happening is it turns into essentially large, financial groups buy it. So Concord Music Group is the one who bought it, but they're owned by, a hedge fund, essentially. And hedge funds are just looking at, okay, we know that this is going to produce a return, and we can take this return and go to our shareholders and say, look, we bought these assets generate this much revenue per quarter. And so you can get this kind of dividend, and it turns into just bean counting. They know that these songs have a certain value, that they've had a certain value for the past, and these songs in the future are there's no reason to think that they're going to change because, whatever, Beat It has been getting this many spins every month for the past 30 years.
Every October, Thriller's going to go through the roof.
Exactly, it's totally true. And so that is what happened in the music industry. And I think that speaks to the way that the economy has kind of ended up being structured. A lot of people are looking for investments that will return a dividend. And so they, investment houses figured out, there's a lot of money in the music industry where if we give these people X amount of dollars, they'll let us have their, the catalog, and we can then tell our shareholders that this money will be here for blah, blah, and they can take that money and then they can go ahead and invest it in other things and make it, they can borrow against it, invest the money that they borrowed in other assets and produce, more of a return. So that's essentially what happened with the music industry. That's why, like you said, it wasn't just Razor and Tie. It's so many different companies or so many different, record companies that's happened to. And so the fact that we were able to leave and kind of just check out and still own the music that we're going to make in the future. I own the name and stuff like that. That was a very, very big deal. But there was a time where, as the label kind of I guess kind of withered away is kind of what happened. It became a little more difficult to get money out of the label and a little more difficult to get them to do things. Like in 2017, we released a record called Madness, and on the record we had a cover of a Garth Brooks song.
Yes.
And so the song's called The Thunder Rolls, and it did great for us. It went gold for us, and it was a great song, and it was received really, really well. And I was really frustrated in the very beginning because they didn't want to do a video for it. And I'm like, are you people broken? Like, this song was a massive hit in the 90s. Like, this is going to be a hit. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, and then once the record actually came out and they saw how many spins it was getting, they were like, oh, crap, we got to shoot a video for this. And so we're scrambling to shoot a video. And I'm just like, why is our label reacting and not
forward
proactive?
Thinking? There was no forward thinking for a long time. I would venture to say still currently is not happening, which is why it brings us to the next part of your journey, being able to do it yourself, that freedom that comes from that, and knowing, you guys didn't get to where you're at by not being forward thinking and thinking about your next steps while you're making the current steps. That's the way successful businesses more often than not are ran. And as much as it's entertainment and art, there's a business side of it too.
Yeah.
And the record labels and that becomes part of it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and it's something that you guys are familiar with too. Like, when City of Evil came out, it was significantly different from Waking the Fallen, right? Waking the Fallen was the first one?
Yeah, well, technically our first one was Sounding the Seventh Trumpet, and then Waking the Fallen was the first record I was on, and then we did City of Evil, and that was our first major label release.
Yeah, and I remember when that came out, it was like, oh, this is not just metalcore, right? For everybody we were on tour with As I Lay Dying when it came out, and we all kind of like got together in a room and we're listening to the New Avenged record, and we're like. And of course, everyone was making the Guns N' Roses comparisons and stuff like that.
Naturally.
And we were like, this is not metalcore. These guys made a really smart decision and they're doing something different. And obviously it did tremendous things for you. But that's something that really left an impression on me. So we put out a record called The Fall of Ideals in 2006. And then the very next record that we did, this record called Overcome, we had two songs that were all singing all the way through. And I was nervous as hell, right? I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? People are going to freak out, blah, 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 blah. So much, in fact. So there was an argument that I had with our label at the time, and I was totally wrong. But our label was like, we want to put out the version where you sing all the way through. And I'm like, no, people aren't going to like it. They're going to call us sellouts, blah, 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 blah. I was like, there's other stuff that we're working on to change and kind of progress and stuff, but I don't want to. And the label was like, really? You really need to trust us, blah, blah, blah. And it was a big old fight, and I was like, listen. I was like, all right, fine, we'll do it your way. But when you're wrong, I'm going to let you know. And I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And it was a big old fight. And I was wrong. I was as wrong as hell. The gold record.
Yeah.
Over here, right there. Yeah, that one right there. That's the gold record. And we got that song actually went platinum too. So I was extremely wrong. But having that change and looking at the metalcore scene and saying, we got to do something different. It was a really big, important thing for us. Not that I want to knock other bands or anything, but a lot of bands that came up as metalcore bands, they relied on the breakdown as the hook and the thing that was getting people at shows. Because when you're playing live and you get to the breakdown and the whole place goes bananas, you're like, that's it. That's the selling point. That's what people love. And so it's really hard to be in that spot and be like, we're not going to write breakdowns on the next record, or we're not going to do that. It's like, what are you talking about? This is why people care. And I think there are too many bands that kind of didn't see the forest for the trees or didn't understand that what the people were loving was the hook that the breakdown gave. It wasn't that it was a breakdown. So if you write hooks in your choruses or you write hooks in your music, they're still going to gravitate to that. And one of the things that I think we did is we we didn't focus on one part. I think that we really tried to focus on writing good songs. And I don't want to, it's hard to say this without sounding like you're talking badly about other bands, and I don't intend to at all, but we really did say, we're not going to hang on to the trend, especially because like we kind of snuck in like at the buzzer as like the Fall of Ideals came out in 2006, and by 2008 metalcore was done. Like there were no new metalcores. It wasn't
new. It wasn't new. Yeah.
It wasn't new anymore. So like we kind of snuck one in at the buzzer, and then we're like, all right, we're here now. We're gonna get out of this as quick as we can, you know. And it, you know, thankfully it worked out for us. But that was one of the things that I've always done, is I've always been like, look, we can't write for breakdowns. We can't write for a guitar solo. We can't write for any part. We have to write songs. They have to be songs that people care about, and they have to be things that you know, resonate with people. And thankfully it worked, you know. So, you know, having that kind of I feel like having that kind of example, like I said, you guys, I took note of that. Like as when City Evil came out, I was like, these guys are on to something, and it's not just a trend. And so, you know, I guess thank you very much for kind of being a bit of an inspiration there, you know?
Well, dude, thank you for the kind words there and saying that. No, I appreciate it. It really comes down to whatever is true to you. Don't chase anything that's not true to you, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. If you want to write the breakdowns, to your point, you don't want to talk shit on the other bands that just went for that. And you're not, for the record, everyone at home could take it easy. We're not talking shit on these other bands. That was what was in their heart. That's what their heart and minds, and that's what they went and did. Our heart and minds took us to a different place. And luckily, back to what we talked about with the fan base, All That Reigns, Avenged Sevenfold has fan bases that have followed us through our changes, our sometimes vast changes and sometimes subtle changes, everything in between. And that's just given us the power. A while ago there was articles coming out, the power of 1,000, now that social media and everything has come out. And I think it reigns true. That's what we started with. To your point, you're playing the fucking shows. You hit a breakdown, all of a sudden the 500 capacity club is going nuts, you know, and you kind of ride that for a little while, and you're like, well, where do we go from there? And then you just start to find yourself artistically and where you're going to go. You constantly evolve as a human. I mean, you were saying, oh, I don't want to put out the thing that I'm all singing because it'll make us seem like a sellouts. How do you feel about that today? If you were to go back to talk to Phil that time, you know, not with the hindsight of knowing that it was going to give you a gold record or a platinum record, more so just like that worrisome, because I say it because if I was going back to certain times in my life, there was times when I worried about shit that I shouldn't have been worrying about.
Sure, yeah.
So for you, maybe like today, you could think about what you would say to Phil at that time of like, why are you worried about X, Y, Z? Why are you worried about if you're selling out? What does selling out even mean? Like, I mean, especially at that time, it meant something different. I know what you're talking about, because there's always that internal conversation of, you know, abandoning certain things that have worked for you. Is it a sellout? But what does a sellout even fucking mean? And what would you have said to that, Phil?
I think if I went back, and I genuinely believe that the thing that brings people back to All That Remains, and maybe this is because I'm the singer, but I think that the stories that I tell are what people gravitate to. And I probably would say, look, just tell the story. Tell them what happened, because I write about things that actually happened, and 2 weeks was about a thing that happened in my life, and it really tore me up, and it was really raw, and it was emotional, and it really, you know, kind of hurt at the time. And I would definitely go back and be like, just look, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just tell the story. Just tell them what happened. Don't be afraid of telling them. Tell them exactly what happened. Tell them how much it hurt. And it will all work out, because people will understand what you're saying. People will hear the lyrics, they will hear the story, and they will say, I've been there. I felt that way. And I think that's what really keeps people coming back to All That Remains is the stories that I tell. And again, maybe it's because I'm the singer, you know, and I write the lyrics, so maybe it's a little biased, but
yeah.
But I do, like Dave Mustaine said one time, and I quote him all the time. He said, if you write stories or if you write songs about events, they're dated. If you write songs about emotion, then they're timeless. And I truly believe that when you write about the human condition, when you write about things that everybody can relate to, and that's always emotion, whether it be anger or whether it be happiness or sadness, people can relate. And there is an audience out there for every kind of story that you could tell. So just go and tell your story. And people will resonate. Absolutely,
yeah. The fact that people will resonate to it, you're absolutely right. It's not just singeritis, Phil. It's not just singeritis at all. That is what people gravitate towards, is the story and what people are saying. You go back and as a kid, you listen to songs, you love songs, had no idea what they were about, but something still resonated. There's a few key words that you took and put in your own perspective and figured out what it meant to you. That still can resonate because you as the artist is still giving a real emotion. And I guess that's where I was going with like the whole, what is selling out when you're an artist? If you're doing, the human condition or something that's happened to you, you're putting out something that's happened to you. For those that are just starting out and everything and worried about how they should go about it, I would say, don't worry about that. To your point, just tell the story. And as long as you're true and honest to the story, there's an audience for it. And I think that's the big point. There's no selling out or anything like that. I mean, when we were kids, that was like a big fucking word. I don't see anyone ever using that term anymore.
I have a theory about why.
Let's hear it.
When we were kids, there was an underground, right? Like, and you had to go and find things. There's no more underground. There is heavy music and there is whatever, but everything is a Google search away. When I was a kid, like when I was like 15, 14, like 1989, I'm dating myself, but like I had to get a ride from my mom to the music outlet, which was 30 minutes away from my house in Connecticut, just so I could look through the bins to find a cover of a death metal band and maybe I might like it. So I would buy it, hoping that when I got home I liked it. And
then you force yourself to like some of those records. You forced yourself to. I know you did because I did the same thing.
I mowed 2 lawns for this record.
It's going to be fucking good no matter what. And I'm going to tell all my friends it's good, even if it's not good. I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. But that's the thing. There is no more underground anymore. And I think that that's something that people don't realize. Like punk rock is never going to be punk rock the way that it was in the 70s and 80s because it doesn't have the protection of being a secret. Heavy metal, like really underground metal, like black metal and stuff like that, it's never going to be the same because it doesn't have the protection of being a secret. And that the fact that it was a secret and that it wasn't something you could just Google up meant that you could have, really edgy stuff and really counterculture stuff. Nowadays, if you do that and someone, a mom's group finds out and doesn't like it, it's going to be all over Facebook tomorrow, and they're going to blow it up. And it's just that there is no more underground. And so that means there is not the protection of the anonymity or the fact that it's a secret. So subversive things, they don't have they don't have the secrecy anymore, or it's really, really hard to have the secrecy because of the internet. There's no more underground. There's no more edgy things the way there used to be. And I think that might be something that might be lost forever. It might be a bad thing for art, and it might be something that's lost forever just because of the internet. Because the internet is great for tons and tons and tons of things, but it's a double-edged sword. There are some things that are lost, and that the secrecy that the underground used to provide, it's not there anymore. I think of I'm sure you know Life of Agony, like there's that one song, Crawling from the Underground, or Underground, and I love Life of Agony. I used to go see that band every time. They're from New York and they'd play in New England all the time, and I would go see them every time I can. I love them to death. Still think they're great. But that kind of underground is just gone. It doesn't exist anymore, and it's because there is no more secrecy. Everything is instantaneously on the internet and live streamed right into your face.
Right. I I actually think you're onto something with that theory. It does make perfect sense the way you describe it too. And yeah, I mean, it's you're probably right. It's not going to go back the other way. It's only going to get worse. I mean, talking about putting chips in your brain that access all the information that quickly, you know, it's like, and part of me is fucking on board for it. And the other part of me is like, I'm not sure everyone should have that ability.
Yeah. I mean, everything, like all technology is a double-edged sword, you know. I mean, everything since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, you know, and the Industrial Revolution allowed for, you know, massive increases in productivity, but it's also created a ton of pollution, and so you had to deal with that, and some of it we fixed and some of it we haven't, but you know, the fixes sometimes aren't fixing everything, or sometimes the fixes have problems, you know, like sure, windmills are great, but you know, they can't be everywhere, and also they kill a lot of birds, and so, you know, maybe that isn't the way to go. So everything is give and take. There's this super smart economist named Thomas Sowell, and he said that there is no right or wrong. Everything is trade-offs. Everything's a give and take. So you don't get to say all this and all that, or none of this and none of that. It's maybe you'll get 70% of this, but there's 30% of it that you don't like. And so everything in life is some kind of trade-off and a give and take. Nothing is 100% either way. And people tend to not like that, and I understand why, because you know, you hope that that a solution that you have solves the problem and doesn't create more problems, but you know, that's just not the way that reality works. And so I think that people kind of need to, well, it would do people well to think about that when they're thinking about, you know, solutions or what they're going to do and how they want to behave in life.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to our first part of our conversation with the compromising and everything too, right? I mean, you're not going to have it all one way. And again, what I was saying, not everyone knows everything. Like, we all look around, we're all just here for this short time on this planet, trying to do our best. And you stand on the shoulders of the generation before you, for all their good things and warts and all too. There's other things you try to improve upon, you know, talking about parenting and everything. You know, it's not like everyone has a horror story about their parents being bad parents, but there's still things that we learn as generations go on about parenting, or about raising the next generation, or being more just, more present in things. I think that's become a bigger topic in society these days too. And yeah, you know, you're never gonna fucking make everybody happy. You know, there's always gonna be something, and you just hope that there's a compromise in there along the way. That's all you can do. But on to back to All That Remains again. You mentioned Dave Mustaine. Just had the pleasure of finally meeting him.
Oh, did you?
Done a lot of stuff with them. Yeah, we did Hellfest together in Europe, in France, and Dave and the rest of the guys from Megadeth came and met me and Matt, and we had a nice little dinner at our hotel and stuff. Got to talk to Dave.
Oh, you know what? I saw the picture you guys put up on Instagram of that.
Oh, did we do that? I didn't
someone
see if
did. I'm not sure who put it up.
yeah. I didn't see it, but yes, sure. Yeah, it was really nice. And I saw you guys are about to do some dates with Megadeth and Mudvayne here, and coming up in August. And
the Destroy All Enemies tour across the United States starts August 2nd, I think, in Arkansas, and then it goes for 2 months until September 28th. The last show's in Nashville. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously, we're super excited. Again, we haven't been on, we did a tour a couple of years ago that was we called it the Fall of Ideals celebration. It was 15 years since we released the Fall of Ideals, and we kind of wanted to see, you know, how are people feeling about All That Remains? You know, like, we know that people dug the records that we put out, and we wanted to see if people would be interested in coming to see us again. And the reaction was phenomenal. We had amazing shows. A bunch of them were sold out. You know, the crowds are great. So we were like, okay, we want to go ahead and definitely want to keep that energy going. And Fortunately, Kelly Cap at Live Nation put in a good word for us with the Megadeth crew, and we got the Megadeth tour. And again, for being gone as long as we've been gone, and to come back and get this opportunity to play with Megadeth and Mudvayne and in sheds in the summer, it's a humbling opportunity. I'm super grateful, and I can't wait to get on the road. It's been a minute. But you know how much fun shed tours are in the summertime,
Yeah, they could be a great time, especially if you're on a tour with some other bands that you respect and can get along with, hanging out back behind the stage where all the trucks are every once in a while. You got a long day. I mean, I used to bust out a kiddie pool some days because it gets fucking hot out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's
you just got to pull an Al Bundy like he did in his backyard with that, and just sit in the pool with a cold drink of some kind. But yeah, great tours. Have you had any interaction with the guys in Megadeth or Mudvayne before?
So Chad, I know because we've done some touring. We've done some touring with Hell Yeah, and he's great. I don't know the other guys in Mudvayne, but I'm excited to get on the road with them. I actually got the opportunity to interview Dave a long time ago. This is probably 2009, 10, 11, something like that. So I don't expect that he would remember. And I think that's where I actually got the quote of him talking about the songs. But yeah, he was super nice and chill. And I think Megadeth was like my second concert. My uncle took me to see Testament, Megadeth, and Judas Priest in like 1991 when Painkiller came out, and I was like, "This is so great."
That's a great lineup.
Oh, it was so much fun. I'm a big Testament fan, anyways. I love them to death, and I've been a Judas Priest fan all my life. Souls of Black was
one of my favorite records growing up. I loved Souls of Black.
So good, so good. Skolnick is great, and then they were one of the bands that I thought really did a great job of evolving with the metal scene. In the 90s, like when they put out Low and Chuck had started throwing some death metal stuff, I was like, this is sick, because I was like one of those snobby death metal kids. Like I was like, if it's not Cannibal Corpse, I'm not listening to it, So when Testament put out, Low with like actual death metal vocals and Chuck doing his normal kind of shouty singing, and then the death metals, I was like, this is so awesome, so I've been a fan forever and ever, and so I'm super excited to get out there with Megadeth and Mudvayne, and hopefully I can say what's up to Dave and he'll remember me.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Yeah. And then you said that was your second concert though. What was your first concert?
That was my second rock concert. My first concert was Tiffany when I was like 11. I think we're alone now chick. I had a huge crush on her when I was like I said, I was like 11 years old, maybe 12. And then after that, the first concert that I went to was Motley Crue and Faster Pussycat in, I think it was New Haven, and Tommy Lee was doing the drums were up on the rafters and stuff, and he went to slide down, and when he slid down, he fell and hurt himself, and then they stopped the show. So like the Judas Priest show was probably like the first full concert that I got to see, because I wasn't a Faster Pussycat fan, and Motley Crue was cool, but like Tommy busted his ass and the show was over. So I was like, oh, that sucks. So yeah, there was the Judas Priest show was maybe the first full heavy metal show that I got to see, Rob came out with the Harley and everything, revving it on stage. It was awesome.
Dude, so rad. It is funny though. You mentioned when Tommy, I didn't know that story, but like ate shit and fucking. It's funny though now when you like at the time, I'm sure it's like, oh bummer, the show's over. But when you look back at it, you were at a rare show, my friend. You were at a show where he busted his ass. It's like we talked about Guns N' Roses a couple times on this podcast. It's like being there when the riots broke out, or when Axl fucking attacked Slash, or attacked the fucking. You're like, I missed the show, but damn, I got to see something that was a little different.
There was, so, do you remember when Skid Row, when Sebastian Bach kicked a bottle into the crowd and hit a girl in the face?
I remember hearing about it, yeah.
So that happened in Springfield, and I knew the girl.
No
she was a couple grades older than me, but I didn't know her well, but I was like, I know her. He jumped in the crowd and boots first. It was all kinds of a mess. So it's funny to be like, oh yeah, man, I didn't see the show, but Man, that's some crazy shit we can talk about later.
Exactly. It's a good table
Right?
talk right there. It's
Good
a good
story.
Yeah. It's good. It's good stories like that you'll need, Phil, when you're going to be a middle tabler at dinner, you know, and you're going to be the middle tabler. You got to have those stories to bring up. Well, you mentioned A Small World of knowing someone who gets hit in the face with a Sebastian Bach's bottle. Small World as well. Another podcast I'm halfway through. I apologize before I didn't have time to finish it. That you were on our mutual friend Doc Coyle's X-Men podcast.
Oh, yes.
I think you're a 5-timer now, I believe.
Yeah, me and Doc, New Jersey and it's real close to New England. Those guys used to come up and play. We trade shows.
Yeah, we did all
the Shadows Fall guys, and God Forbid and Lamb of God would come up, and Unearth was around all the time.
Right.
I went in Kill Switching Age. I was super fortunate to come up in like the area where I did, because New England was such a hotbed. It was like all of New England, and then like you guys and Bleeding Through out in LA.
Dude, yeah. Like I'm so glad you just mentioned it. As you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like there was all the East Coast metalcore, and then there was a few of us coming out of Orange County, Atreyu, Bleeding Through, coming out of Orange County and LA area. That was, I guess they still considered the same genre, but I think the major difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, from your perspective, my perspective was always there was the East Coast metalcore was a little bit more steeped in metal and didn't go into the Southern California punk. We brought a lot of the Southern California punk influence into our metalcore.
Yeah, I was kind of like, well, those guys are a lot like us. They just wear more eyeliner.
not that you didn't wear eyeliner, just more.
No, actually, in New England, being the New England blue collar kind of guys, that was something that like we were like, they wear makeup, we don't wear makeup.
Oh, dude, it was fun. Oh, I remember that very well. Touring with, you mentioned Shadows Fall, going out and doing tours with, God forbid, all these other guys you mentioned on the East Coast of metalcore. It was very like we got along fine once we met each other, but like there was always that like, why are these guys wearing makeup and what the fuck is wrong with them? And we're like,
it was that friendly ribbing, you know?
Yeah. We were okay with it. We brought it on. We're like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We know what we look like. But
but yeah, Doc's a wonderful, I love him to death. We're very, very politically different, but there was a time when my political opinions got some crazy looks from people in the music industry, and Doc was always like, nah, man, he's cool. Like he's a good friend of mine. And Doc never was one of those dudes that were giving me cross looks or anything. He was always he's always wonderful, and I love him like a brother because of it. He's such a wonderful guy. So I got nothing but good things to say about Doc. I love him to death.
Yeah, I got nothing but bad things to say about him, but I'll refrain. I'm just kidding. No, I love Doc. I love Doc. He's the man. And I wanted to mention that podcast too, because you did mention in it, I believe you've been sober now from alcohol for quite some time now. Yeah.
So I don't use the term sober because sober has connotations with it, things that go along with it. You mentioned Lamb of God, Mark Morton. He's another friend of mine, like love him to death, and he's a guy that's like, he specifically said, look, sober means a certain thing, and if you're not sober and if you're not actually sober, you're not sober. And I'm like, you know what, I get that and I respect it. So yeah, I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in, the last time I had a drink was February of 2018. I quit drinking regularly. I used to drink all the time, right? Wake up, drink till if I didn't have anything to do, I'd wake up, drink until I got drunk enough to nap for a couple hours, get up and drink again, and do that for days and days. And when me and my ex-wife got separated, it was February, and I'm like, man, we weren't on tour, like the record wasn't coming out for a while, and I was alone in my house in New Hampshire. The days are short, it's winter, and I'm like, man, bad things can happen if you're drinking all the time. So I stopped drinking regularly then, and I went for a couple months and didn't drink, and I drank again and didn't drink a little bit for a while, and essentially basically the following years when I was out with some friends, and one of my buddies was like, let's get a shot. And I was like, oh, okay. And I took the shot, and I was like, I'm definitely not doing another one. I'm not getting drunk. I don't want to. And I don't know why I took this shot. And when I kind of thought of that, I was like, well, I just don't want to anymore. And that was the last time that I had any booze.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just a decision that I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I don't have a good story. Like some people have a story that goes along with their sobriety and stuff. I don't have a story. I just stopped, and I don't. That's not, and I don't want to in any way sound like I'm taking away from people that have gone through a program or had some other means to stop. Whatever you do to help you get over that, more power to you. Whatever you do that helps you, that's the right thing to do. Right? It doesn't matter what I did. I can only tell you, for me, I just kind of took a look around at my life, and I said, I'm not getting anything out of this. And drinking booze is only going to make me fat. So, I don't want that.
And as the front man and lead singer, you can't be having that.
I tell you what, when I got divorced, or when me and my ex separated, I started throwing myself into the gym, and I got into really good shape. And I'm like, man, I ain't gonna get fat again. I don't need this stuff. So yeah. I was just like, I don't want to. But again, however you do it, whatever means someone uses to stop drinking, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's you decide you don't want to do it, or you go through a program, you have sponsors, whatever works, that's the right way.
Right. I completely agree. I also will go one step further to say, if you don't have a problem with drinking, you don't need to stop. There's all sorts of levels to this. I mean, but there's no denying that alcohol is a drug and a depressant. And for certain people, depending on your lifestyle, your just genetic makeup, maybe, whatever the case may be, you get to a point where you decide you don't want to do it anymore. I made that decision pretty recently. I will also not use the word sober. I stopped drinking. As you saw right there, I'm drinking a cannabis infused sparkling water right now.
Nice.
So, I found other avenues to get me going, but similar to you, man, I was just like, and I heard you saying it on the Timcast podcast as well, just saying how your journey was causing more damage than good. And just, you didn't realize you had that sobering moment of, why am I doing that? That question. Yeah. And that's one thing I will say for everybody who listening at home, question everything. Please question what I'm saying right now. Question what Phil's saying, even though I should be saying not to question it because he's a guest on my show, but you know what I mean. Question everybody, question everything. Not to your own detriment, of course, but question it and, try to learn from it and be honest. If you're not going to be honest with other people, at least be honest with yourself. And that's what it comes down to.
I would add to that, like, one of the best things that I think that I have learned to do is to think about what I'm thinking about. Like, think about yourself, right? And don't just react to things. Think about why you're reacting. Think about, like, is this feeling that I'm having, why am I having this feeling? What is it? What does this feeling mean? What is it doing? And just that kind of mindfulness is extremely valuable, and you will be astounded if you can start thinking about what you're thinking about and being aware of what you're thinking about, and almost like becoming a third person, like observe yourself thinking. You will be amazed at how valuable that is. I kind of learned it because I started doing meditation, and I'm not like a dude that meditates all the time or whatever, but I do like the mindfulness. And one of the things that it opened my eyes to or made me realize is emotions are optional to a degree, and you're gonna feel them, but for ease of use, because everybody can kind of relate to this. When you're driving and you get mad, right? You're mad and you want to be mad at the car in front of you, but you can't do anything about the car in front of you because you're in your car and you're going 70 miles an hour or whatever. So I found that I can actually step outside of myself and be like, okay, you don't have to hold on to that and sit there and think about that asshole if he'd move and blah, 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 blah. Because it turns into something that you are just ruminating on and focusing on. You can feel that and be like, okay, I can just let this go. And it's hard for me to articulate, but I almost think of it like you can just put your hand out and just watch it go away and allow the feeling to just leave. Because if you don't hold on, if you're not sitting there focusing on how mad you are, you're like, I'm mad. If you can just say, okay, I'm mad. Now I don't have to be mad if I don't want to. And you do have the ability to let that go. And
yes.
and it's amazing with just a little bit of practice and just a little bit of like self-awareness. You can say, oh, I don't want to be mad. And then just allow it to pass through you. Allow the emotion to build up, and then it'll go away, and it will literally leave you. It's without sound like I'm not a super spiritual guy. Like I don't have I'm an agnostic dude, but it is really crazy. It's almost like something just is lifted off of you and it just evaporates. And it's the most amazing thing. Thinking about what you're thinking about and thinking about what you're feeling and kind of trying to step out of it it's almost like a superpower. So
dude,
I think that what you were saying is great. So
dude, I could not agree with you more. That was so well put.
Thanks, man.
Definitely comes from, like for me, it's something I've been struggling with for the last 15 years, probably. I've been in therapy since 2013. And therapy is slow moving at sometimes, and meditation. A lot of people are talking about meditation these days, of course. And I have dabbled. It's very difficult for me, and
yes.
I haven't given it. I have not. It's something you have to practice. It's not something that comes naturally, of course. And I'll be honest, I have not practiced enough. But one thing I was turned on to by my therapist was the Daily Stoic, the Stoicism book.
I love it. Yes, Marcus Aurelius. I have meditations by my bed. I read that kind of stuff all the time. It is so helpful to me. So helpful. Dude,
it's helpful. I recommend it to anyone who's struggling with that, with being able to control their emotions. Because I think that is the thing. Stoicism is, for those who don't know, is kind of steeped in the controlling what you can control and letting other things go, and being forward thinking about that too. If you got something that's waking you up in your neighborhood, Chris Kale was talking about this actually on the podcast a couple years ago.
Love Chris.
Great dude. If you got construction going on at 7:00 in the morning every morning, and you like to sleep until 10, and you keep waking up at 7:00 in the morning to that construction, getting angry, you're not going to do anything about that construction. But what you can do is change how you're reacting to it and how you're feeling. And to your point, through meditation, a little bit that I have done and discussed with other people, emotions do come from a lot of different places. You have a lot of personalities, not to sound schizophrenic, but you have a lot of personalities wrapped into who makes you. And recognizing that is very important. Being able to see that, not just in the as you put the easier scenarios like driving a car or something that makes you angry. Anger is always the easiest one to go to, right? But there's other ones, and I don't know about for you, but for me as a musician, as an artist, there's keeping that ego in check of like that jealousy. Sometimes that comes up, those other things, and it's not something that you have complete control over feeling. Sometimes it just comes up and you realize, oh, that's jealous Johnny over there. We don't need him right now. We're gonna put him in the corner right now. Maybe all these emotions serve a purpose, by the way. There's not bad emotions. They all serve the purpose, but you have to be able to recognize when and where they're supposed to come up, if you can. And this is all not for, I don't want anyone to take this and this is going to make you a better friend or a better anything in society or get you accolades in life. This is just going to make you happier and be able to, if you're looking for true happiness in yourself, I believe in meditation, self-awareness, retrospective.
It's funny you mention happiness because it make you happier, because the first time I tried doing any kind of meditation, I saw someone talking, I think it was probably on Joe Rogan, and he had an app called 10% Happier. And that's the meditation app that I used. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And again, this was after my divorce, and I was really, really bummed out. And it was like, oh, it was just such a revelation. And I like to describe it like, you're right, you can't stop emotions, but you can decide to, instead of gorging yourself, you can just sample it. Just have a little bit.
Yeah, think of it as tapas. Think of it as tapas, everybody. Just get a little sample of everything, Like, let's go. No, I agree. And that, and I'm so glad that we had these parts of this conversation. It's been awesome getting to know you a little bit, Phil. I mean, again, all the years that we've been, paralleled, we've never actually sat down and had a chance to talk. So I appreciate that so much. I appreciate your honesty and being forthcoming and open today on everything. Sure. And I also appreciate that you guys are going to be in LA. You added a second date to this Megadeth Medvein tour. I believe I'm going to be home for, so I think I'm going to try and go
Come say
out.
hi, please.
I would love to come out and see that show, and everyone else should too. That second date is available, as well as all the other dates for this tour coming up. You guys, easy enough to find. Phil and All That Remains touring album. Do you guys have, speaking of the album, you have the 2 songs out right now. You said you've been writing a lot of songs, so I assume that means you have a forthcoming album.
Yep.
Do you have any information you can give on that today?
So I don't know when the release date is, but actually, when this airs, there will be a song that is released that's not actually an All That Remains song. I did a feature on a song called "The Proof Is in the Proof" by a guy named Rashad. It's a country song, so you can take a look for that. And we will have I think it'll be safe to say we'll have another single coming within a couple weeks of when this airs. So keep an eye out. And then the actual release of the record, I'm not sure when it's going to happen. And I know that we don't plan on doing a big announce and then, week or whatever. We're probably going to be like, hey, check it out. So when it comes, it comes. Keep your eyes open.
Awesome. Yeah, everyone keep your eyes open for that. And on that real quick, back to being able to release it yourself there. Is that, are you finding this to be fun? Now that you guys are in control, like you just said, you're releasing it however you want. If you want to release the entire album as singles, you can. And never even call it an album, and just one day it'll show up in everybody's playlist on Spotify that there's an album out, which is really cool. There's truly no wrong or right way to release music, I feel, at this point. It's the Wild West in a really cool artistic way. It's getting us away from some of that conveyor belt music that we were talking about. It has been that way in our genre, in and around our genre, I'll say, for quite some time. And I do feel like it's good that more artists like yourself are going in the route of free agency and getting away from that, because I do feel like that's that hedge fund, that numbers thing that has kind of infiltrated into art. And I really hope, for everybody's sake, we get back to art just being for art's sake and not for anything else. I
mean, it's still expensive, and it
sucks
when you got to open your paycheck, your checkbook and write the checks yourself for videos and stuff like that. But
But right, I mean, well, you did mention earlier when you were talking about the Garth Brooks cover, they didn't. The label at the time wasn't sure they wanted to do a music video, and I'm glad you re-brought that up, because I was thinking about it. I was like, aren't they just a bank anyway? Isn't the label just a bank anyway? So it's like, hey, can you give me some of that money so I can spend it? I know you're gonna make your money back anyway. So can you just do that for me?
Yeah. And now I don't have to beg anyone. I just have to go to the bank and be like, all right, write the check myself.
Yes, absolutely, man. And it's so good for everyone. Everyone, go check out some more of All That Remains, more of Phil Labonte. Dude, again, thank you. There's so much more we could have gotten into. I hope down the line we can have a in-person conversation and get a little bit more into some longer form. I'm sure a lot of people listening right now is like, that was pretty long, but you know what I mean? We could get into some deeper shit there.
It goes fast, though. It doesn't seem like it when you engage in conversation that two people are actively engaged in, that stuff just goes by super fast,
Exactly. I always feel that too, man. When I have good conversations like this, I'm walking away going there is still meat on the bone there, but we covered a lot, and it was great getting to know whoever that is. And today it was you, Phil. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the time, man. Again, everyone go check out more from All That Remains, more Phil Labonte, more of this show, more of everything. Let's just keep it going. Until next time, as always, cheers.